welcome to this week's episode of In the Making. I'm your host, Emilee Smarr, and we have a very special episode lined up for you this week. As you know, we are always going to talk about how athletes are making it to the top of their respective sports, and that is going to start with a roundtable featuring Carter Solomon, Hunter McElrea, and Yuven Sundaramoorthy. It is going to be an incredible episode. Make sure you stay tuned to the end for a one-on-one interview with an even more special guest, and we are going to get started here today with our news and notes. Another week, more drivers that are joining the series and being announced, but last week was a very special event, the Roar Before the 24, and that is prefacing 32 drivers, past and present, who are going to be competing in the Rolex 24 this weekend ahead of the first race of the series that is coming up in a few weeks in St. Petersburg. So make sure that you stay tuned with us on all of our social media accounts, YouTube, Twitter. Follow us, comment, tell us what we need to know, tell us what you want to hear about, and make sure to continue joining us for every week of In the Making, because we are going to be here filling you in on everything USF Pro Championships. And now we are going to move on into our roundtable, a very exciting panel of guests that we have here with us today. We are going to start off by introducing Yuven Sundaramoorthy. We are so excited to have you here, the first Indian American driver to win an Indy-sanctioned event, and fresh off of his first season in the USF Pro 2000 in 2022, here in 2023 in his first season with Exclusive Autosport. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Yuven.
Thanks for having me.
Up next, we have Hunter McElrea from Indy Next. He is with Andretti Autosport. He was born in the U.S. but raised in Australia, and he was fourth in the Indy Next last season. Super excited to have you here with us today, Hunter.
Thanks for having me on.
And up next, we have Carter Solomon from Notre Dame Cross Country. He was the 2022 ACC Cross Country champion, and he's also an aerospace engineering major. So very excited to hear from all of these guys today about just how they're in the making to getting to the top of their sport. So let's start things off with Yuven. How are you preparing for this racing season right now?
A big part of what I'm preparing for is getting in better fitness this year. I had a couple issues last year where it was just didn't have the strength to finish the race where I wanted to, so really been focusing on working with Hit Fit and D1 training here in Madison and getting prepared for the year.
Right, so let's talk a little bit about what fitness looks like for you guys. Can you guys just kind of give me, all of you, just a rundown of what your fitness routine looks like, just kind of training for your respective sports?
I guess I'll go. I live in Indy, so it's kind of a racing hub, especially with IndyCar and Indy Lights, or what is now known as Indy Next. So it's good. There's a lot of fitness-based gyms around racing. So for me, I work out at a gym just down the road from my apartment, and I'm lucky enough to have my own trainer. So it's pretty much all dedicated to me and what I need in the car to be able to hold on for, like you even said, the race distance. Mainly dealing with a lot of force in your neck, upper body strength, and then cardio and things like that too. So it's good. I'm lucky every day I get to be pained by him.
Right, so what about you, Carter? How does that look for you? You know, obviously you have to really condition your body to be going for quite a long time, and these guys are in a car for quite a bit as well, enduring some crazy forces. So what is it like for you, you know, just on the run, trying to keep composure for yourself?
Yeah, I think it's this training is very similar to how these guys train endurance wise, I assume. Trying to get towards the end of the race and be as comfortable and as powerful as possible towards the end of a race. So a lot of training just looks like a lot of mileage, week in, week out, 10 plus miles a day, a couple harder sessions a week to really work on pushing ourselves to a further limit. And it's really the recipe is just run more miles, and the more miles you run, the faster you'll be. We do incorporate a little bit of strength work in the gym. We lift twice a week when we're in season. So incorporating that into our routine has helped a lot. We've seen a lot of benefits from that.
Right. So tell me a little bit, continuing with you, Carter, what is it like playing a university sanctioned sport as to where, these guys are just kind of freewheeling out here, for lack of a better term?
The first thing I would note is I'm jealous of these guys. They don't have to do the school side of it. But as you had mentioned earlier, I'm studying aerospace engineering. So part of why I came to Notre Dame was for the academic piece, right? So looking past at college athletics, I wanted to have a career fulfilling in something that I'm interested in. But now that running has kind of picked up and I'm really focusing on that part of my life, school is definitely very challenging here. So it's tough to balance, but finding that balance is what makes it fun. And competing at this level is a challenge in itself too. So seeing how far you can push yourself in both categories respectively is something that I wake up and love doing.
I'm sure it's kind of hard to balance the weight of the United States kind of being against Notre Dame as well, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit of Notre Dame versus the world mindset is kind of how I go about it.
Absolutely. So let's turn this over to Yuven. You actually are at University of Wisconsin, right? Tell me a little bit about your major and what coursework looks like for you and how you balance being a successful driver with that.
Yeah, so I'm a computer science major here at UW-Madison. And it's been actually surprisingly easier than I was expecting before I came into college. A lot because of COVID moved a lot of things online. So a lot of assignments are now turned in online and makes it a little bit easier to deal with. But I'm actually missing a class right now because I messed up my time zones. But basically just need to work with the professors in advance, get the information, and a lot of them are really good about giving me the assignments early or giving me the assignments late, and figuring out how to get all the material in.
So what are some of those unexpected challenges that, you guys have had coming up through the ranks just as students? I'd never really thought about, potentially missing an assignment because you have to train for a race or something like that. So tell me maybe a funny story that you guys have, coming up where you kind of had to do the dog ate my homework kind of deal.
Oh, that's a good question.
I think Yuven's going to have more than Carter.
Yeah. The professors at Notre Dame are very, they love athletics. Well, most of them do. So they're very understanding, and they help us out a lot when they can.
Yeah, it's a little bit more difficult to get them to understand racing. Some of them I've had that understand it, otherwise they don't. Obviously, it's not sanctioned by the school, so I don't get any excused absences or anything like that. But so far, nothing really, except trying to convince my professor that I was there for one day to give me attendance so that I could get an A instead of an AB. It worked out in the end, but yeah, it's something to deal with.
Right. So, just from the competitive aspect, what is the most challenging part, just handling your sports mentally and preparing for that, especially in this age with social media and coming off of the pandemic? Tell me a little bit about what your mentality has been like over these last few years and maybe how it's shifted.
I guess I could answer that. Yeah, for me, I think the mental side of any sport is huge. For sure, I can just think of running. I'm not a runner like Carter by any means, but for sure, the mental challenge of running that far, no matter how much you train or whatever, there's going to be someone that's pushing you to the end. So as much as skill or talent or natural ability will get you so far, a lot of the time it's the mental toughness that decides whether you win or not. So it's kind of the exact same in racing, albeit a lot different, two sports. But for me, yeah, the mental side is huge. And I think it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. It's always, maybe this works better for someone else. And to me, everyone knows themselves the best. So it's a constant learning, but I think having a mind in the right gear, for whatever you're competing in, is extremely important.
Yeah, I completely agree with Hunter there about everyone being different because I used to live about 4 minutes away from Hunter, so I would go over to his place and we would run in the morning, and he would run circles around me. I'd still be about 2 miles in, and he's coming back from his 6th mile. But I just needed to figure out what works well for me, so now I focus more on running on my own pace, doing some erg, doing some different forms of cardio like that, and so far it's worked out.
So I take it y'all don't race each other anymore?
I would lose, mostly because he's 6'3". That's my excuse.
Hey, it's a good excuse to have. So, Carter, your sport is all about maintaining your distance, your endurance throughout the competition. How do you specifically train for that, and how does that kind of relate to what these guys do?
Yeah, I was going to ask these guys how they train specifically for the mental side of things. In terms of running, I mentioned earlier that 2 times a week we have harder sessions where we run faster for a long period of time, typically longer than we race. So what I do is I visualize myself in a race while I'm working out. So when that workout gets really tough and I'm feeling these parts of running that suck, I want to stop. Mentally, my mind is telling me to stop, and then my body's screaming, right? Mm-hmm. I just think about, okay, this is you in a race, work through this, and if you can work through this in a hard workout where you're training longer than what the race is, you'll be prepared for race day. And I've noticed that that's helped tremendously on the mental side of things, as well as meditation and visualization. I think when I'm not running, I think about racing and putting myself into that race. And holding that picture in my mind before I even get into the race helps generate that actually happening in a race. So if I see myself at the front of a pack in a race before it even happens, then I have a better time of getting out in a race and competing to where I visualize myself.
I would agree with that for sure. Visualization is huge, particularly for us. We can't just go outside and go running. It's one of these things where our sport's very unique in that aspect, where we actually spend way more time doing things to get in the car, whether it's, finding sponsorship or training, simulator, you name it, versus actually being in the car in real life. So visualization is huge leading into a weekend where you get 1 or 2 practices and then qualifying. Just trying to, like you said, familiarize yourself with the surrounding of that you're going to be in. You'd be surprised if you can do that successfully, how second nature it actually does feel.
And Yuven, you're actually going to be in some new surroundings this season. You've joined a new team. Tell me a little bit about what that process was like for you, and how you just maintained focus on training while you were in the process of transitioning to a new team.
Yeah, obviously it's a different thing. It kind of feels like transferring schools because I love the guys at Paps Racing. They're great people, and I've been with them for a ton of time. I was there with Hunter earlier in 2019 and 2020. So it's going to be a different experience, but in the little time I've spent with the exclusive guys so far, I really love their system, and I love everything like that, and I think they have fast cars. So just really got to focus on my own stuff and keep everything else out of it. It's important in racing to focus on yourself and stay confident and don't let other people affect you. In the end, you have teammates, but after all, it's just you racing.
And speaking of transitions, we talked with Hunter earlier about how let me get this straight. You were born in the U.S., you were in Australia for 10 years, and now you're back. What's that journey like for you, and how have you seen the differences, going back and forth?
For me, it's normal. That's the funny thing. I know the commentators always laugh at my mixed nationalities, you could say. I can't remember growing up in America because I was born there, and then I left when I was 3. So I don't remember anything really. But no, it's been for me great growing up in Australia. I race on the New Zealand flag because it's my family heritage, and I've got a dual citizenship of New Zealand and America. So it kind of played out perfect having the citizenship over here for what I was going to end up doing. So happy with that, but I wouldn't say I had to transition too much until I moved over here the first time. I first started in the road to Indy, which what it used to be called, back in 2019, and I've been here ever since. So there's always a few things that I knew, but I would say now in my fourth year or fifth year almost, I'm pretty used to it. But it's a fun adventure. I like the change of scenery going back home, and it's nice to kind of just be international, I'd say.
Yeah, didn't you say that the weather was kind of bad earlier?
Yeah, I don't like the weather right now. I'm not a snow guy. I'm not a cold guy. I'm a sunshine and outside type of a person. So it's quite tough right now, but it's just one of the sacrifices you make.
One of the sacrifices that you make, for sure. So let's talk a little bit just about, what does recovery look like after a racing weekend for you guys? It's nice being able to just kind of say race generically because you guys are all racers in your own regard.
Yeah, so I mean, recovery is you come back from the racetrack at like midnight or whenever the plane lands and get home, make sure I get some sleep that night so I don't mess up my sleep schedule, and then wake up the next morning with a really sore neck, really sore back, and kind of get right back to work. It's not like you can really take the time off right after a race day and not keep training, because a lot of the time you have one weekend and the next weekend you're right back at it. So if you stop doing cardio, you stop doing workout, eventually it'll start affecting you.
Yeah, we're right about
For
the same
me,
way.
Anybody?
You can go, sorry.
Sorry about that. I was gonna say, yeah, it's kind of the same way. After a race day, your legs are a bit sore, but I think last fall, after all of our races, is when we did our longest run, the day after, to kind of flush things out and get right back to it, as you were saying, Yuven.
Yeah, it's a little different every time. I started using physio this year, and it's done a lot of benefits, I'd say, in terms of post-race recovery with your muscles. And the faster the car you get in, the more of a tax it has on your muscles and things like that. So I've noticed the higher I've had to step up, the more physically strong I've had to be, and the more I've kind of had to invest on myself off track.
Do you guys feel like with the technology improving over the years that you've kind of had to modify your training in the same way so that way you can keep up with the progress of the cars?
Yeah, for sure. I would say just the more you move up, the faster you're going. So basically what that entails is just your body being under more stress. And you just have to adapt to that. So it's no different. It's no different to really probably running further distances. You need to train more and run further for that.
What is the wildest thing that each of you have done to train? Really rack your brain here.
I'll leave that to someone else.
I'm interested to hear what you guys say, but for myself, I think it's funny. So my dad wasn't a runner, so he loves learning about what kind of runs we do. So we were at the gym together once, and I was on the treadmill, and I was like, "Dad, crank that up to 12 miles an hour at 6-minute mile pace." And he was basically full out sprinting. And I was like, Dad, we do that pace for 15 to 20 miles, some of the guys on the team. And he was just blown away. And I was like, I mean, it feels a lot easier outside, but I mean, that's 90 minutes at 6 minutes a mile. But anyone at this caliber is doing that workout without a problem. So I've seen guys do that kind of workout at 5 minutes and 30 seconds per mile, if not faster. So like you guys said it before, that it's always evolving. There's always more to be done, but it takes process. It's a process, and there's steps to get there. Year in, year out, increasing your mileage each year.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah,
say
that's
my
crazy to
story is
me.
wild, but back before I would do training with PitFit, I would get on my simulator and turn the strength of the wheel up to max so much that I could barely turn it with my 100-pound body. And I would just sit there for like 2 hours, 3 hours at a time and just do like a laps on left-hand turns and right-hand turns. And the sim would get mad at me because I'd always be driving around the track backwards. But just basically trying to get an even workout on both arms until I figured out a more efficient way to do it.
Right. So tell me a little
Yeah,
bit.
neck
Oh,
training's the worst.
I'm sorry. No. Go ahead.
For me, neck training is the most unorthodox way that we train. I work out at the gym that my trainer works at. There's a lot of D1 college athletes and NFL players, and so it's quite cool. There's a lot of athletes there, and we all kind of, you see people lifting weights and things like that. It's pretty normal. But when all the different athletes see this tall, skinny dude doing neck workouts in the middle of the gym with quite a lot of weight, it's everyone stops and looks and haven't seen it before. So for me, that's probably the biggest thing that separates racing from anything else is force that's on your neck on a high-speed track. And I actually put my device on I think it was a basketball player, and he wanted to try it at the weight I was doing it, and it almost ripped his head off. So it's nice to see that you're actually doing something at a high level. But I'm sure if I try to jump in on any of his workouts, it wouldn't go very well.
Does your neck have like a max PR?
It depends. I guess technically, but we always try and mix it up. If it's hooked up to the cable machine with my device that's on my head, called the Iron Neck. But we do lots of different variations. So technically, yes, but truthfully, I don't even remember. I just leave all that stuff to my trainer.
Good stuff. So let's talk about more good stuff. 2023. What does this look like? What does this season look like? How are you guys going to just absolutely dominate going forward here? Anybody?
Yeah, so it's a huge year for me especially, but I know for most people. But it's in the sport of racing, it's all very expensive, and a lot of the time it comes down to money and having the money, and in the end, sometimes sponsors won't want to sponsor you if you don't have the results. So it's super important to kind of, especially now running with the team that just won the championship last year, I have to come out of the gate swinging and prove to all my sponsors and prove to hopefully new sponsors and investors that I have the skill and I have the ability. And I know in myself that I do, but it's up to proving to them and finding the money to run the year and next year.
Yeah, for me, it's obviously every year is a big year, I would say, but it's exciting. Obviously, it's a new chapter for me, my second year of what was Indy Lights, like I said, now is Indy Next. Last year was a good year, obviously, won a lot of races, a lot of poles, got Rookie of the Year, and we're looking good for this year. So, just really grateful to have the opportunity to be back in Andretti Autosport, sponsored again by Smart Motors, and to be also having the support from the Stelrite company is huge. So just excited to get St. Pete and get the season rolling.
Great. What about you, Carter?
Yeah, this upcoming track season, looking to run some faster times, some PRs from last year. The fall of 22 was a breakout for myself. So I'm really excited to see what I'm capable of on the track this winter and spring. But what I find really exciting and what I love most about collegiate athletics is the team side of things. So cross country is very much a team sport, and you got 5 guys that score. And this upcoming fall in 23, we return all of our guys from last year with the vengeance, a chip on our shoulder. So I'm really excited to see where our team can go in the fall, working together for something bigger than ourselves and competing at the national level for a national championship. I think we're all really excited to do that, and that's what I'm looking forward to most.
Awesome. Well, thank y'all all so much for joining us on this roundtable today. It was great to hear all of your thoughts, and I think that we all learned that maybe our journeys are a little bit more similar than they seem. So again, thank you guys for joining us on In the Making, and good luck to all of you in your respective seasons.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
For sure. Have a great one, guys. All right, and now we are going to turn things over to our one-on-one interview with none other than Stingray Rob. The 2020 USF Pro 2000 champion finished second in Indy Next in 2022. Super excited to have you here with us today, Stingray. So I think that we need to start just kind of with the most obvious question. How did the name Stingray come about?
I think that is the most obvious question. Well, to start, my parents were big Corvette fans, and they decided to pass their passion along for Corvettes along to me through my name. And so they named me after the Stingray Corvette. And then my dad has a 1966 Stingray as well at home. And from there, I mean, there's a longer story. Do we have time for the longer story?
Go on.
Yeah?
We got all day. We're here in the crib.
Awesome. Very good. So the long story is, my dad's side of the family's heritage is from Stirlingshire, Scotland. And so Sting is actually short for Sterling. And then both of my grandpas had Ray in their name. And so we took all that together, combined it, and got Stingray out of it. So it worked out well as a race car driver.
Well, that's pretty cool. So is the Stingray your favorite model of Corvette, or, what's your preference?
Yeah, I'm a little biased. But yeah, for sure. The C2 Stingray Corvette is definitely up there on my list of top cars.
Okay, awesome. So one of the last things that we were actually talking about in our roundtable earlier was the team aspect of sports. We were actually talking about that with Carter Solomon. He is a cross-country runner for Notre Dame. So tell me a little bit about what it's been like finding a team so far throughout your career racing. I know you started at a young age, so what has that journey been like for you over the years?
Well, for starters, on-track wise, it's crazy with racing. Racing is a very dynamic sport, and there's a lot of variables that go into play. So it's like my job as a driver to feel what's going on inside the car, but once I'm done on track, I have to download with my guys off track to make sure that we're getting everything ready to where I need it to be so I can perform at my best. So it's my job to work hand in hand with an engineer, mechanics, and anyone else that might be involved in the car setup, so that when I get on track, I don't have to worry about, okay, is the rear of the car sliding out? Is there understeer? And so there's a lot of different people that are involved in making the car go fast on the track. But away from the track, just to get in the seat of a car, there's a lot that goes into it. And so I've got a good team around me for marketing, for management. My manager is Peter Rossi. His son is Alexander Rossi, who's also an IndyCar. So we've used his experience and knowledge in getting Alexander to IndyCar for myself, creating a program that's similar to what he used in the junior ranks to get through that, and then into IndyCar. And then my mom is what we like to call my momager. And she does a good job of being my mom, as well as managing everything for the betterment of my career. And she keeps me honest. She's my biggest cheerleader and my biggest critic all at the same time. So, I mean, even coming up through the ranks in karting, my dad and my grandpa were my mechanics. They were tuning the engine, tuning the kart, making sure everything was tight, or, every once in a while I'd lose a wheel or whatever. But we didn't hold a grudge, so we're still on good terms. And despite all the lost wheels or motors, whatever else, I had my fair share of mistakes, so plenty of finger pointing here and there.
Right, so you're a very family-oriented guy. Your family's with you almost every single race weekend. So you're talking a little bit about your mom here. What's your favorite memory with mom over the years with racing? What's one memory that just really sticks out to you where you're like, oh my gosh, mom?
Man, that's tough because they've been at every single race. Like my dad, he's only missed one race ever in my entire career, and it's because he was in the hospital trying not to die. So we're like, okay, we'll let you have a pass on this one. You get better, and then you come back to the racetrack. But even then, he was still on the phone every 30 minutes, making sure we had the right gear in the cart, the right tire pressure and everything. So I don't know. My favorite memory is probably after my race win in 2020 at Mid-Ohio. It was my first race win in the road to Indy. And I get out of the car, and I hug my mechanic, and the first person in line is my mom. And I think that moment is like this realization of like, wow, we finally made it to this point. We've had moments like that all along the way. They've been there every step of the way. So it's just sharing those successes with them, with my parents and my grandparents. It's pretty special.
Right. So what moments are you really excited to make in your first season with IndyCar here in 2023?
Well, I mean, the first Indy 500's got to be on the list. So I'm excited for that. Rookie orientation will be interesting, but I want to do really well. And I think that Rookie of the Year is not out of order for me and myself to do well with the team. David Malukas was a rookie last year with Dale Coyne Racing, and he finished second in the championship just like I did in the Indy NXT series. So I think that we both have similar paths on where we're headed and where we've been. And he was fighting for Rookie of the Year last year. So I don't see like that's going to be too difficult for us to, stay on that line. So definitely learn a lot. I went to the team shop recently and did some pit stop practices, and that's a whole different deal. So I'm excited to figure out what it'll be like at St. Pete.
Right. So you're talking a little bit about, getting yourself back into this rookie mindset. So what are the things that you're kind of expecting here? What obstacles are you going to have to overcome in your first season with IndyCar?
Like any other series, right? You want to just learn as much as you can. I mean, in any sport as a rookie, you want to learn as much as you can. Just be a sponge and absorb it all up. But my engineer last year, when I was with Andretti Autosport in the Indy NXT series, he mentioned to me, just finish every lap, because that'll provide so much more experience just to finish races than it will be, pushing for that one extra position and then crashing out. And so I want to be consistent. I want to make sure that I'm finishing as many races as possible and just getting as much experience as possible. And I know that at the end of the day, that'll be a bigger difference than, pushing the limit here or there. So not to say that I'm not going to be pushing the limit. I'm excited to be at the front of the field, but definitely I think just finishing what I need to do.
What message do you hope that your first performance in this series will send compared to your races in previous years?
Well, I want to come out of the gate strong, so I hope the message is get out of the way. Stingray Rob's here. But I mean, off track, I think I want to be a good example of the brands that I'm representing, and I want to be faithful. I want to be consistent, and I want to be fast. So those are the things I think I'd like to communicate.
Have you taken any opportunities to kind of use your name and play into that with your social media and get more marketing opportunities? What has, the role of social media kind of played in you being a big player coming up here this year?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, Stingray Rob stands out amongst the rest. So definitely, through broadcasts and everything else, it seems like the announcers like to say my name a lot. It just rolls off the tongue really easy. And it's definitely recognizable. And I think that for a lot of people, they don't believe it's my real name. So if you go to my Instagram, I always have it in my bio that says, yes, it's my real name. That way people aren't confused. It's not like a nickname. It's not like a stage name for my race car driver career. It actually is who I am. And so I think that people laugh at that and they realize, like, okay, this kid might be the real deal. He's got a lot of history in cars. He's doing well. So definitely social media plays a big part in growing your audience, especially as you step up into IndyCar. When we made our announcement earlier this year, or actually just a couple weeks ago, my phone started blowing up. I had to get off of all social media and just take a break just because I couldn't keep up with everything. So it's cool to see that the following in IndyCar is growing and that everyone's super passionate about young drivers coming up through the ranks. So I'm happy to be with Dale Coyne and Rick Ware Racing in that aspect.
Right, so how did you get your start in racing? I know that you started young, but is it something that your parents kind of pushed you into, or is it something where you were just like, okay, yes, this is absolutely something that I want to do?
Yeah, well, I think for most kids, they go through different stages, right? They'll want to be a fireman, they'll want to be a police officer, they want to be a veterinarian, they want to be an astronaut. And I think my parents kind of expected the same from me because day one, I said I wanted to be a race car driver. And I think part of that was influenced by them. They took me to drag races. They took me to autocross events, Corvette club meetings. I mean, I took my first steps at a Corvette Club event. So I was around cool old cars all the time, but I entered that stage of wanting to be a race car driver, and then I just never left. And so I got a go-kart for my 5th birthday, and that was kind of game over. My parents were super supportive of me, and they just took me to different events, and pretty soon we were traveling all over the country, then all over the world, and then worked our way into cars, and here we are now.
Right, so what's the most underrated part about becoming a driver and being at the level that you're at?
An underrated part of becoming a driver?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. I mean, it's pretty glamorous, right? You get to drive a race car for a living. I don't know how much is over or underrated. I think that, we're getting to live a dream, right? From that 5-year-old kid to now, there's not much that's changed other than where we're at, and the skill level's gone up, and there's a little bit higher pressure, but I think that's what makes it so cool. Being that 5-year-old kid looking at where I'm at now, I think that I would be super proud of myself and super proud of the family that I got around me, super proud of the people I have around me. And I don't think that, everyone aspires to reach that high level of success, or they might think that they could one day, but it's just a dream, right? And I think that it's pretty cool to have that become a reality.
What does it take to move to the top level of your sport? What do you think what was your biggest takeaway from every single part of the ladder that's gotten you to where you're at
perseverance now? Is definitely something that I say would be a big thing. Because at any level of any sport, you're going to come up with different trials. I always say that racing has the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. So you got to find how to get through each one of those. On the super good days when you're winning races and doing really well, it's easy to get cocky and arrogant, then you get your butt kicked at the next race. And so it's good to, have that mentality of like, okay, I always want to be progressing. I want to be consistent. I want to make sure that I'm being honest with myself and where I can improve. And I think that at the end of the day, if you check the boxes off and you do that consistently and you're perseverant through it, meaning you don't give up, you're not willing to give up and not try, because there are days when it seems like there's no point in doing what we're doing. And I think that that makes a big difference. I think that's why the top guys are the best, is because they fight through those hard days.
What is your point in doing what you do?
I mean, there really is no point, right? We're just driving race cars as fast as we can. No, but I mean, this is a little kid dream, right? This is what I feel like I've grown up doing, and I feel very passionate about driving race cars. And to do it at a high level, I think that does something for me. It tickles that part of my brain that I want to say that I'm the best that I can be. And that off track, I think that we have a large platform that we can utilize and impact the world with. And I think that's the responsibility of any athlete or influencer or anything else. We're put in such a position that it allows us to have influence and impact on the world around us. So I want to make sure that I'm doing that to the best of my ability. Right.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about what a successful 2023 looks like for you. I know that you've had, all these accolades over the last few years, but where do you really hope to set yourself apart?
I have a goal list a little bit. I can't share everything on it, but I think Rookie of the Year is definitely on there. David Malukas is definitely a good bench line for where I could be on the team and where I could be in the series. So I think that beating him in a few races is definitely on the table. Maybe a couple podiums would be good. But I definitely just want to show everyone what I'm capable of. And I want to represent the team well. I know that they've kind of been rated as the underdog team, but I think they're capable of doing a lot. So I want to make sure that I'm supporting them and they're supporting me in the same way.
So how do you think that the, kind of persona of the team is going to change this year with you being a member of it? What do you think that you bring to this team?
I think that we're kind of going to be titled as the same thing. We're going to be the underdog team. And with David and I being the two youngest guys in the series, we're the young guns. So I think that people might have their eyes on us, but they're like, they're just the young kids in the back. But I'd like to change that. I want to scare people a little bit. I want them to feel like they're being challenged and that we're actually a team to beat. So I know that Dale is super involved in the team and, doing pit stop practices. He's right there next to the car, critiquing, telling me what I'm doing wrong or right. and same thing with the other guys. So it's cool to see that his involvement keeps the team at a high level, and I think that that's what allows him to be successful even as a smaller team, a smaller resource team, compared to someone like Penske or Ganassi or even Andretti or McLaren. So I definitely want to beat those guys. Those are definitely some of the goals, is to beat those bigger teams.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your outlook and your opinion. That was an awesome interview. And once again, we just really appreciate your time today, and we look forward to seeing what you do this season.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us again, Stingray. It was great to have you in the crib, and we wish you the best of luck as you head out on the road and all of your ventures in IndyCar this season. And thank you guys so much for joining us in the crib this week as well. It was awesome to have you, and we are so excited to have you back next week. Make sure that you like, subscribe, follow us so you know when we go live, and we will keep giving you the latest and greatest in USF Pro Championships. Once again, I'm your host, Emilee Smarr, and thank you for joining us on this week's episode of In the Making.